Guys, now we have a big, because the medical examiner just released the Charlie Kirk autopsy report, and he said that the bullet never came out the back. And so the problem with that is they already announced that the weapon was a 30-06 high-caliber hunting rifle. I don't know if you've ever fired one of those, but I have many times. It is a hunter's primary option for hunting big game animals. We're talking deer, moose, bear, buffalo. Hell, Teddy Roosevelt took down a fucking elephant with a 30-06. If you're not ready, it will knock you on your ass when you fire it. And so now you mean to tell me that that high of a caliber from 150, 200 yards away is not powerful enough to exit the body? I call absolute bullshit, because that caliber would absolutely destroy your vertebrae. It would literally explode your ribcage. There is no possibility that it wouldn't exit your body. So what aren't they telling us? And if they have the weapon, why are they not releasing any ballistics information to us? If this is such a high-profile case that they're claiming it to be, transparency. What don't they want us to know?
Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most confusing and controversial developments yet in the Charlie Kirk case. In the days following Kirk's shocking death, the story seemed simple enough. A lone gunman, a clear motive, and a crowd that witnessed it all in real time. But now, new information is beginning to surface, and it threatens to upend everything we thought we knew. Multiple influencers and independent reporters are claiming they've obtained details from Charlie Kirk's autopsy report. Information that, if true, doesn't just raise questions, it blows the official narrative wide open. They're saying the medical examiner's findings don't line up with the prosecution's story, that the bullet's path, its entry point, and the injuries sustained are scientifically inconsistent with the angle of fire attributed to the accused shooter, Tyler Robinson. And if that's the case, then the FBI and the prosecution could be standing on very shaky ground. Because this isn't just a disagreement over theory, it's a matter of physics, anatomy, and forensic truth. If the autopsy really shows what these reports claim, then the fatal shot may not have come from where investigators say it did, or from the person they've already charged. So tonight, we're going to look closer at the evidence, the math, and the angles. We'll break down what the alleged autopsy says, how the wound pattern fits or doesn't fit with the official account, and why more and more people are beginning to ask the question no one wanted to face: could Tyler Robinson really have fired the fatal shot? Or has the public been misled from the very beginning? If you believe the facts don't add up, don't just scroll past, dig deeper with us. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part of this investigation. Because the truth doesn't reveal itself, we uncover it, one layer at a time. What do you think really happened that day? Drop your theory in the comments. I read every single one. The more people question, the closer we get to the truth. So like, share, and let this story reach those who still believe the official version. According to those reports,
my understanding from speaking with a couple of people high up at Turning Point USA, they let me know that the injury took place right below the jaw in the C2. The bullet crashed through C2 all the way through C7. And then they found the bullet lodged in that meaty area around T1, the thoracic first vertebrae.
The autopsy found that Charlie Kirk was struck by a round that entered just beneath the jaw, around the level of the C2 vertebra, before traveling downward through the neck. Along its path, it's said to have fractured several vertebrae and lodged near the T1 region, close to the upper spine. If that's true, it paints a very specific picture. That's not the path of a random shot. It's a close-range, downward trajectory, one that implies the shooter was either standing above the victim or firing from an elevated angle. In other words, whoever pulled the trigger wasn't on the same plane as Kirk. They were higher, maybe on a step, a platform, a structure just out of frame. But here's where the narrative collapses. In every frame of the event footage, Tyler Robinson, the man accused of firing that shot, is clearly seen standing on level ground, directly in front of Kirk. There's no visible slope, no platform, nothing that would create that kind of angle. When you apply even the most basic geometry, the math doesn't just bend, it breaks. For a bullet to enter from below the chin and travel downward through the neck, the gun would have had to be fired from a higher elevation, not straight on. So unless Tyler Robinson was somehow taller than physics itself, something about this picture doesn't fit. The evidence points in two directions, literally. Either the autopsy report is inaccurate, or the true origin of that shot came from somewhere entirely different than where the world was told to look. And if that's the case, then this isn't just an investigative oversight. It's a manufactured reality, a controlled narrative crafted to protect someone or something. Because bullets don't lie, angles don't lie, but people and institutions often do. Witness footage shows Charlie Kirk seated upright, calm, focused, addressing the crowd. His posture is steady, his jaw parallel to the ground, and there's no visible sign of distress until the instant he collapses. According to the reports, the bullet entered just beneath the chin, at a sharp upward angle, before traveling downward through the neck. Now think about that for a moment. If Tyler Robinson fired from directly in front, on level ground, physics alone make that scenario nearly impossible. A front-facing shot, from that position, would have struck Kirk in the mouth, or lower face, not below the jawline. For the official trajectory to make sense, Kirk's head would have had to be tilted significantly backward, as though he were looking toward the sky, at the exact moment the trigger was pulled. But in the footage we've all seen, his head isn't tilted back at all. It's level, natural, and then in an instant, he's hit. So what does that mean? It means that if the alleged autopsy report is real, if the bullet truly entered where they claim, then it didn't, and physically couldn't, come from the position the prosecution says Tyler Robinson was standing. The angle is wrong, the elevation is wrong, and even the point of impact contradicts the basic geometry of the official narrative. To believe the government's version, you'd have to believe that the laws of physics, the same laws that govern every bullet, every body, every trajectory, simply stopped applying that day. And that's not how reality works. Which raises an even more disturbing question. If the shot didn't come from where they said it did, then who or what was really in front of Charlie Kirk that day? The weapon allegedly used, a .30 Nisa Bro 6 Springfield rifle, is no ordinary firearm. It's a high-powered, military-grade cartridge capable of delivering massive kinetic energy, firing rounds at speeds exceeding 2,700 feet per second. At that velocity, the bullet doesn't merely pierce, it devastates. It tears through tissue, fractures bone, and exits the body with enough residual energy to continue traveling hundreds of yards beyond its target. That's why experienced investigators and ballistics experts immediately questioned one key detail in the supposed autopsy report. The claim that the bullet was found lodged inside Charlie Kirk's body, because physics doesn't bend for convenience. At close to medium range, .30-06 round, especially one fired from a rifle, doesn't stop after shattering bone. It exits violently, leaving behind a clear entry and exit wound. So if the projectile was recovered internally, that changes everything. It suggests one of three possibilities, and none of them align with the official narrative. First, it could mean the weapon used wasn't actually a .30 Nisa Bro 6 rifle at all. A smaller caliber round, say a 9mm or .223, might behave that way, embedding rather than exiting. But that would directly contradict what investigators claimed was found at the scene. Second, it could suggest the shot was fired from an unusual distance, not close, as we've been told. At extreme range, a .30 Nisa Bro 6 round can lose enough velocity to remain lodged after impact. But again, that contradicts the eyewitness footage showing the shot occurring just a few meters away. And third, the most unsettling theory of all, it could mean that the autopsy itself, or the weapon evidence, was manipulated. Because if the bullet recovered doesn't match the ballistics of the weapon allegedly used, then the entire chain of evidence collapses. Which leads to the question nobody seems willing to ask. If the round inside Charlie Kirk's body didn't behave like a .30 Nisa Bro 6, then whose weapon fired it? And why has no one, not the investigators, not the press, not even the prosecution, demanded that ballistic comparison be made public. Until those answers surface, we're left with a contradiction that science can't explain, and a truth someone is clearly trying to bury. Some have floated the idea that Charlie Kirk might have been wearing body armor that day, and that the bullet, instead of striking directly, deflected upward after impact before entering his neck. It's an interesting theory, one that's circulated widely among online analysts trying to make sense of the impossible trajectory. But officials from Turning Point USA, along with those who were physically present that day, have all denied that claim outright. No vest, no protective gear, nothing that could have altered the bullet's course before it made contact. And even if he had been wearing body armor, the physics still don't hold up. Ballistic plates are designed to absorb and dissipate impact, not redirect around in a clean upward arc. When a bullet strikes armor, one of three things typically happens: it's stopped, it cracks or splinters, or in rare cases, it glances off at a shallow angle. But it does not ricochet upward at nearly 90 degrees, then pierce the underside of the jaw, and travel downward through the neck. That's not how materials behave, and it's not how Newtonian physics, or any established ballistics model, operates. For that to happen, the bullet would have needed to lose momentum on impact, reverse trajectory, and somehow re-accelerate in a completely new direction, while maintaining enough energy to fracture vertebrae. In short, impossible. And yet, that's the kind of mental gymnastics required to make the official explanation fit. A theory that asks us to suspend not only disbelief, but also basic science. So once again, we return to the same central inconsistency. Every natural law, every forensic principle, and every eyewitness angle says the same thing. The shot could not have come from where the prosecution claims. And if the laws of physics were never broken, then the truth must be that someone's version of events was. If it wasn't body armor, and it wasn't a front-facing shot, what does that leave? As investigators and online analysts began re-examining the footage frame by frame, a different picture started to emerge, one that most people completely missed the first time. A theory now gaining traction suggests the fatal round may not have come from in front of Charlie Kirk at all, but from behind, an elevated position, slightly above and to the right of where he was seated. From that angle, the physics begin to make sense. A shot fired from above and behind would naturally travel downward, passing just beneath the skull, striking the C2 vertebra, and continuing through the neck before exiting, or lodging near the T1 region of the spine. That trajectory aligns almost perfectly with what's described in the alleged autopsy report. The downward path, the damaged vertebrae, even the final resting point of the bullet. It's the first scenario that doesn't directly contradict anatomy or ballistics, but it also introduces a much bigger problem. If that trajectory is accurate, it would mean the shooter was positioned behind Charlie Kirk, not in front of him where Tyler Robinson was seen. In other words, Robinson couldn't have fired the shot that killed him. Every frame of footage, every eyewitness account, every moment caught on camera places Robinson directly in Kirk's line of sight, not above, and certainly not behind. And yet, the damage pattern on Kirk's body, if the report is real, speaks to an angle that Robinson simply couldn't achieve from his position. So now we're faced with a haunting contradiction. Either the trajectory data is false, or someone else, positioned beyond the crowd, possibly on an elevated platform or hidden vantage point, fired the real shot. And if that's true, it means the entire event wasn't the spontaneous act of a lone gunman. It was something orchestrated, coordinated, designed to frame a narrative before anyone even asked the right questions. Because in this version of the story, Tyler Robinson isn't the villain. He's the distraction. This theory isn't without support. In the chaos that followed the shooting, multiple witnesses described hearing more than one shot, from different directions. Some said the first blast came from the front. Others swore they heard an echo from behind the stage. A few even reported seeing what looked like a muzzle flash near the tent area, a small sharp burst of light that came from somewhere higher, not level with the crowd. Those accounts were quietly dismissed in the early days of the investigation, written off as confusion, panic, or bad memory under stress. But when you line them up, pattern by pattern, detail by detail, a picture begins to emerge, one that doesn't fit neatly inside the government's version of events. The angles don't align. The wound doesn't match the supposed position of the shooter. The ballistics don't behave the way they should. And if the alleged autopsy report is genuine, even partially, then the entire foundation of the prosecution's case begins to crumble. Because at that point, we're not talking about conspiracy theories or speculation, we're talking about physics. A bullet can only travel one path. A wound can only be created by one angle, and math doesn't lie, even when people do. So if this report is real, the government's case against Tyler Robinson doesn't just weaken, it collapses. On contact with simple geometry, let's be clear. Autopsy records are confidential. They're protected by law, sealed inside the evidence vaults of an active murder case, accessible only to investigators, attorneys, and the court. So if this document truly exists, its sudden appearance online changes everything. It wouldn't just be a leak. It would be a breach of a federal investigation. Which leads to a series of uncomfortable questions. Who leaked it? Why now, in the middle of a trial that's already under public scrutiny? And more importantly, what are they trying to accomplish? Was this leak meant to expose the truth, or manipulate public perception before the verdict? Because if what's being circulated is even partially authentic, it doesn't just shift suspicion, it shatters it. If the autopsy data is accurate, then the prosecution's entire timeline, the angles, the shooter's position, even the supposed weapon, starts to unravel. It's no longer a matter of opinion. It becomes a mathematical impossibility. And here's the paradox that lies at the heart of this case. Both cannot be true. Either the autopsy report is wrong, or the official shooter is. There's no middle ground, no gray area left to hide in. The evidence now points in two directions that can't exist at the same time. And whichever one collapses will take someone's credibility down with it. Whether that's the influencers who leaked it, or the officials who swore by the original story. As this story continues to unfold, one fact remains unshakable. A public figure was gunned down, in broad daylight, on camera, and yet the truth about what really happened that day remains hidden. Behind official statements and courtroom arguments lies a web of silence, sealed evidence, redacted documents, and unanswered questions that seem to multiply with every passing week. Every frame of footage has been dissected, every witness statement scrutinized. And still, the core question echoes louder than ever. Who really pulled the trigger? Until that autopsy is officially released, until verified forensic data is matched with the physics of what we can all see on camera, this case will remain one of the most perplexing and troubling events in recent American memory. Because this isn't just about one man's death, it's about what happens when truth becomes negotiable. When facts are filtered through power, when justice depends on which version of the story you choose to believe. So as more leaks, claims, and theories surface, remember this: real evidence doesn't fear sunlight, only lies do. Stay vigilant, stay curious, and never stop asking questions. I'm Detective Ema, and this was the Charlie Kirk investigation.